My name is Sophia, and I used to think being the cool girlfriend was something to be proud of, until I realized it just meant I was easier to walk all over. It ended with him begging outside my apartment at 2 a.m., but it started 3 years earlier when I thought love meant making myself smaller so he could feel bigger. I was 24 when I met Marcus at a friend's rooftop party in downtown Chicago. Fresh out of graduate school with my marketing degree, working at a boutique agency, living in a cute studio apartment that I decorated with plants and vintage finds from weekend market trips. I was proud of my independence, my small but growing savings account, and the life I'd built from scratch. Marcus was 28, charming in that effortless way that made everyone at the party gravitate toward him. He worked in tech sales, drove a leased BMW, and had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room when he talked to you. When he asked for my number, I felt chosen. The first few months were a whirlwind. He'd pick me up for dinner at restaurants I'd never heard of, introduce me to his friends as his girl Sophia, and make me laugh until my cheeks hurt. I started spending most nights at his place, a sleek one-bedroom in River North that he was clearly proud of, though I later learned his parents were still helping with rent. But somewhere between month 3 and month 6, I started noticing the small things. How he'd check his phone constantly when we were together. How female names would light up his screen, Emma, Jess, Alyssa, and he'd quickly flip it face down with a casual, just work stuff. How he never posted about me on social media, even though his Instagram was full of gym selfies and nights out with the boys. By our first anniversary, I'd become an expert in mental gymnastics. When I found flirty texts from his work colleague Emma, I convinced myself it was just friendly banter. When he forgot my birthday dinner to grab drinks with his buddy Jake, I told myself he was just bad with dates. When he'd disappear for hours on weekends claiming he was networking, I reminded myself that ambitious men needed to hustle. The worst part wasn't the lies. It was how he made me feel crazy for noticing them. "Sophia, you're being paranoid," became his favorite phrase. "Emma's just a friend. You know I only have eyes for you, babe." He'd pull me close, kiss my forehead, and I'd melt back into believing him because I wanted to so badly. I started changing myself to keep him happy. I'd cook elaborate dinners even though he'd often show up 2 hours late, claiming traffic or a work emergency. I'd cancel plans with my friends when he decided he wanted to hang out, which was usually when he was bored or needed someone to do his laundry. I even started working out more because I noticed he'd follow fitness influencers on Instagram and comment fire emojis on their posts. The financial stuff started small. "Babe, can you grab dinner tonight? I'm waiting for this commission check to clear." Then it became me paying for groceries for his place because I was staying over so much. Then it was splitting expensive dinners that he'd suggest, even though his salary was double mine. I justified it as being a team. After all, weren't we building something together? My friends started noticing before I did. "Sophia, when's the last time Marcus took you somewhere nice?" My best friend Maya asked over coffee. "Like, somewhere he paid for." I'd gotten defensive, making excuses about how money didn't matter in relationships, how we were equals. But the truth was, I was spending nearly 40% of my income on our relationship, while he spent maybe 10% of his. I was the one buying groceries, paying for Ubers when we went out drinking, covering the tips at restaurants because he'd suddenly need to hit the ATM later. I started using my credit card more, telling myself it was temporary. The emotional manipulation was subtler but more damaging. He'd make comments about my appearance that felt like compliments wrapped in insults. "I love how natural you are, Sophia. You're not high maintenance like other girls." Translation: "Don't expect me to treat you like you're worth effort. You're so independent, it's sexy. I never have to worry about you being needy." Translation: "Don't ask me for emotional support." When I'd bring up concerns about our relationship, he'd flip the script. "I thought you were different, Sophia. I thought you weren't going to be one of those controlling girlfriends." He'd make me feel like asking for basic respect was being demanding, like wanting him to text me back within a reasonable time was clingy, like expecting him to remember important things about my life was asking too much. The moment everything changed was on a random Tuesday in March. I was at his place, making dinner while he played video games with his headset on, completely ignoring me. His phone kept buzzing on the counter next to me. I wasn't trying to snoop, but when I glanced over, I saw a text thread with someone named Jim Emma that made my stomach drop. Not because of what it said, but because of the timestamp. He'd been texting her throughout our entire dinner date the night before, the one where I'd thought we were having such a great time reconnecting. I scrolled up before I could stop myself. Months of messages. Flirty jokes, inside references, late-night conversations about everything from work stress to weekend plans. Plans that I was never mentioned in, never invited to. She was asking about his day, sending selfies from her workouts, complaining about her dating life to him like he was her personal therapist. But what really broke me wasn't the emotional affair. It was seeing myself through his eyes in those messages. When Emma asked about his weekend, he'd mention hanging out with friends or being busy with work. No mention of the girlfriend who'd spent Saturday cleaning his apartment and Sunday meal prepping for his week. When she complained about guys who were too needy, he'd agree and joke about how independent women were so much better. I was invisible. After 2 years together, I was literally invisible in his life. I stood in his kitchen, holding his phone, listening to him laugh at something his gaming buddy said, and asked myself the question that changed everything. What am I getting out of this? The answer was terrifying. I was getting breadcrumbs of affection, financial stress, constant anxiety about whether I was good enough, and the privilege of taking care of a man who saw me as a convenience rather than a partner. I put his phone down and quietly walked to the living room. Marcus, we need to talk. Can it wait? We're in the middle of a match. No, it can't wait. He paused his game with an exaggerated sigh, like I was interrupting something critically important. That sigh, that tiny, dismissive sound, was my final straw. I'm done, I said. Done with what? This, us, all of it. He laughed, actually laughed. Sophia, what's this about? You're being dramatic. I saw your text with Emma. His face changed instantly, not guilty, annoyed, like I was a child who'd found something I wasn't supposed to see. Sophia, it's not what you think. I don't care what I think anymore. I care what I know, and I know that I'm worth more than this. The fight that followed was everything I'd been avoiding for 2 years. He alternated between gaslighting, you're overreacting, deflecting, all guys have female friends, and manipulating, I thought you trusted me. When none of that worked, he tried bargaining, I'll delete her number right now, I promise. Then got angry, you went through my phone, that psycho behavior, and finally landed on the classic abuser's last resort, making me feel sorry for him. Sophia, please, I love you. You're the only one who matters. I'll change, I promise. Don't throw away what we have over some stupid texts. But I was already mentally gone. Standing in his overpriced apartment that I'd helped furnish, looking at this man I'd spent 2 years shrinking myself for, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. I'm not throwing anything away, Marcus. There's nothing here to throw away. The next few weeks were a masterclass in discovering my own strength. I moved out of his place, which was easy since I'd never officially moved in, just gradually left more and more of my stuff there. I blocked his number after the 15th, can we talk text. I changed my Netflix password, closed our shared Spotify account, and removed my card from his DoorDash. But the real revenge wasn't dramatic, it was systematic. I started tracking every penny I'd spent on our relationship over the past 2 years. Every dinner, every grocery run, every Uber, every gift. I made a spreadsheet because I'm detail-oriented like that, and seeing the numbers was both devastating and liberating. Over $8,000. $8,000 I'd spent trying to buy love from someone who saw me as a banking app with benefits. I didn't demand the money back. That would have required talking to him, and I was done giving him access to my energy. Instead, I did something better. I invested it in myself. I used the money I was no longer spending on our relationship to hire a personal trainer. Not because Marcus had made me feel bad about my body, but because I wanted to feel strong. I signed up for a photography class I'd been putting off. I bought new clothes that made me feel confident. I started therapy to understand why I'd accepted so little for so long. The hardest part was dealing with the mutual friends. Marcus had gotten to some of them first, painting me as the crazy ex who went through his phone. But the friends who really knew me, who'd watched me dim my light for 2 years, they saw through it. Maya told me later that when Marcus tried to get sympathy from our friend group, saying I'd blindsided him with the breakup, she'd laughed and said, Marcus, Sophia tried to talk to you about problems for 2 years. The only thing that blindsided you was her finally getting tired of being ignored. 3 months after our breakup, I ran into Emma at a coffee shop downtown. We'd never met, but I recognized her from her Instagram. Yes, I'd stalked it during my investigative phase. She was even prettier in person, and for a split second, I felt that old familiar pang of no wonder he preferred her. But then she approached me. "Are you Sophia?" she asked hesitantly. I nodded, preparing for awkwardness. "I'm Emma. I wanted to apologize. I didn't know about you." "Not really. Marcus told me he was single, and when I finally figured out he wasn't, I felt terrible." The conversation that followed was eye-opening. Emma had been just as manipulated as I was. Marcus had told her I was just a friend and later an ex he was helping out. He'd been pursuing her for months, using the same lines, the same tactics, the same emotional manipulation. "He's been asking me out since you two broke up," she said. "But after talking to other people and piecing things together, I can see what kind of person he really is." We ended up having coffee together, bonding over our shared experience of being lied to by the same man. Emma became an unexpected ally, and later, a genuine friend. The best revenge was what happened next. Absolutely nothing. I didn't post about being happy on social media to make him jealous. I didn't try to make him see what he'd lost. I didn't even tell mutual friends the whole truth about why we broke up. I just said we weren't compatible and left it at that. Instead, I focused on rebuilding the person I'd been before I met him. I remembered that I actually liked spending Saturday mornings at farmers' markets instead of sleeping until noon at his place. I rediscovered my love for cooking, for myself, not to impress someone who'd rather eat takeout. I started hanging out with friends I'd neglected, pursuing hobbies I'd abandoned, and making decisions based on what I wanted instead of what would keep a man happy. 6 months after our breakup, I got promoted at work. A month after that, I moved into a beautiful one-bedroom apartment with exposed brick and huge windows, the kind of place I'd always dreamed of but never felt like I deserved. I adopted a cat named Luna who greets me at the door every night like I'm the best thing in her world. 8 months post-Marcus, Maya called me laughing. "Girl, you need to hear this. Jessica ran into Marcus at that bar in Lincoln Park last weekend. He was there with some new girl, but apparently he spent the whole night asking about you, where you were living, if you were dating anyone, if you seemed happy." "What did she tell him?" "That you looked better than ever and seemed genuinely happy." Then she walked away. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no residual anger. Just a mild interest, like hearing gossip about someone you went to high school with. That's when I knew I'd won. A year later, I started a blog called Worth More Than Breadcrumbs. I wrote about my experience, not to bash Marcus, but to help other women recognize the signs I'd missed. The emotional manipulation, the financial exploitation, the way toxic people make you feel grateful for the bare minimum. I thought maybe a few friends would read it. Instead, it struck a chord. Women started sharing their stories in the comments, sending me private messages, asking for advice. I realized how many of us had been taught that being low maintenance was a virtue, that asking for basic respect was being demanding. The most common message I get is some variation of, "I thought I was the only one who felt crazy for wanting my partner to actually act like they cared." You're not crazy, you're not asking for too much, you're not being dramatic. I didn't get revenge on Marcus, I got something better. I got my life back, I got my self-respect back, I got my financial stability back, I got my peace back. Marcus is still out there, probably still making some other woman feel like she's lucky to receive the bare minimum of his attention. But that's not my problem anymore. The woman he knew, the one who cooked his meals and paid his tabs and made herself smaller so he could feel bigger, she doesn't exist anymore. She was transformed into someone who knows her worth and refuses to accept anything less. And honestly, that's the best revenge of all. If you've ever been the cool girlfriend who never asked for too much, I want to hear your story. If you've ever felt like you were going crazy for wanting basic respect in a relationship, you're not alone. Comment below if you've ever realized you were giving 100% to someone who was giving you 10%. Your story matters, and more importantly, you matter. Remember, you're not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong person.